All righty. Welcome, everybody, to today's session, the final session of the countdown to the Build a Better Business workshop. In this series, Debra Taylor, leader of the workshop, is going to give you a preview of what she'll be teaching in the workshop and how it can help you better serve your clients and gain new ones while working smarter, not harder. So if you want to go ahead and figure out and find out more about the workshop itself and what's covered, the workshop itself actually started this week, and then it continues on March 7th, 17th, and 21st. Or if you want to go ahead and sign up, you can go to horsesmouth.com/BBBW23. For those of you in joining us in Zoom, I will go ahead and put that into the chat panel, and then those watching on the stream, I'll go ahead and put that up on the screen for you now. Still plenty of time to join. You can watch the replay of session 1, be ready to go for March 7th. So in today's session, the focus is going to be on the final day of the workshop and the session, make financial planning the cornerstone of your practice and how to do it. So to kick things off, I'll go ahead now and hand things over to Horse's Mouth Editor-in-Chief, Sean Bailey. Sean?
Thanks, Doug. Welcome, everybody. This is our last pre-workshop live stream with Debbie Taylor, the Build a Better Business workshop. You can find out more, like Doug just said, horsesmouth.com/BBBW23. That'll get you to the page where you can learn all about this workshop. What we've been doing in the run-up to the workshop, and the reason we're doing it even though it started Tuesday, is that Debbie's workshops now spread out over the course of a full month so that you and your team can get on, participate. There's a lot in there. It's like a smorgasbord of business development, marketing, practice management, tech stack, financial planning. There's a lot of things in there. And this is the stuff that Debbie has, honed in her practice over the last 20 years. And it's just a huge opportunity for yourself, for maybe other people in your business, to spend some time with Debbie and other advisors in this 4-week workshop. So you can still get in and participate. And so, yes, Debbie, good to see you again.
Good to see you.
And the topic for the last, where we've been advancing each of the sessions. And so today we're talking about 2 things: making financial planning the cornerstone of your practice. And we're also going to be discussing the tech stack stuff. You're kind of the tech stack queen in my book. But anyway, making financial planning the cornerstone of your practice.
Even Doug's laughing.
Yeah. What is going on with that? Where are you coming from?
Yeah, so we've been talking about this for a while, and the more time that goes on, the more this message is being, reinforced and acknowledged, right, out in the marketplace and with clients. And so for years now, we've been saying that financial plans has got to be the cornerstone of your practice, right? That's how you differentiate yourself. That's how you provide value. You go deeper. Planning is not commoditized, right? All those things that now I think most folks are like, yeah, I know that. I think the reason that we spend probably a quarter of our time in the webinar, the workshop, right? We spend out of 4 sessions, almost a full session on financial planning and the tech stack, is because it has become such a large part of these practices being able to protect their fees, attract clients, retain clients, and basically like move to the sort of like the next generation, right, of sort of protecting the DNA of the practice, so to speak. And so that's really what we're talking about here.
Yeah. So it is interesting to, for the industry as a whole to sort of, so it's so retirement focused. And of course, the baby boomers have been a big aspect of that, and they continue to be. And, getting ready for retirement requires so much planning. It's not an easy thing. It's not like you punch out on your last day at work and then put your feet up. It takes a lot of advanced planning. And 30 years ago, the advisor's chief value was, guiding people on your investments. And then along the way, the industry woke up and it was like, oh, wait, all sorts of tax planning issues. There are all sorts of healthcare planning issues. There are all sorts of estate planning issues. There's more to do about the investments and how the investments are going to be converted into income and retirement. So there's so much going on there. People study for their different licenses. They come into this industry. It's really, this industry is unusual that the entryway into it people can come from being a CPA and decide to be a financial advisor. They can be an insurance person. They can be a broker at one of the big wirehouses. There's all sorts of ways into the business. And it didn't necessarily involve them getting schooled up either officially, like with a CFP, or which a lot of people do, or just literally, learning these kinds of things that are really how to solve their clients' obvious problems that are coming their way. As one looks at the retirement demographic and what happens as people move forward in time. And so, so what do you think in your workshop? Like, what are the key things you're going to be focusing on around the financial planning topic?
Yeah, so the financial planning, first, we sort of covered the core software, which is typically Money Guide Pro or eMoney. And so we talk a little bit about that because over 2/3 of advisors are using one of those two types of software. So we have some conversations around that. But really, the big part of the conversation is how to be approaching it sort of internally and also how to be communicating it with clients. So it's not like, like a tech course, like we're trying to teach you how to use Money Guide Pro, right? That's not for us. It's more of like, yes, we have Money Guide Pro or eMoney. We know 2/3 of you are using one of these software, right? How do we package this up? How do we communicate it to our clients? What are the types of things we should be thinking about when we use this software? So it's more of the concepts and the communications around that. And then really what it is, Sean, is building from there. So if this workshop, and actually we did hold this workshop 4 or 5 years ago, right? And it was sort of groundbreaking that we were talking about all the planning and the software. And it's amazing in just 5 years how far the business has come, where now the software is almost like table stakes, right? I'm walking in the room and I'm knowing that 2/3 of you are using one of two softwares, right? And then it's like, okay, how do we build on this to provide some of the tax planning and to provide some of the more specialized planning that your clients need? And so that's sort of the new that we address.
Right. So you want to talk, speaking of the tech stack stuff, you want to just we already had a comment from somebody in the audience mentioning Right Capital, but you want to kind of step us through, your thoughts on the key aspects of the financial planning tech stack that you're going to point people in the right direction on?
Yeah, I think, well, just to back up before we go into the tech stack, because this leads into it, right, is we talk about the 3-lane highway. I use it. I was just meeting with a $4 million prospect earlier today, right? And I use this piece with him and these concepts. And we talk about it in the workshop, right? Is this 3-lane highway, right? So that left lane is investment management. That's basically table stakes. We've all talked about that. It's covered ground. The middle lane is financial planning and retirement planning, which is so important for everybody. But, it's interesting, and I just made a note of this because I'm going to write a horse's mouth article on it. So don't steal my idea, Sean. But, it's interesting, right? Because rich or poor, you need planning. It's just a different type, right? This is going to be the article. And so here's the idea here is if you don't have a lot of money, then the planning is absolutely critical to you because of the longevity risk. Okay. And so we talk about that, right? And that helps to satisfy those clients. If you have a lot of money, then you're like pounding your chest a little bit. And that was the prospect earlier today that I met with. He's a doctor and he has $4.5 million that he'd invest with me and then another $1 million that he plays with, right? And he's sort of pounding his chest like, I have so much money and I don't worry about running out of it, blah, 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 right? His issue is not the longevity risk as much, right? His issue is the tax planning part of it. And that's the 3rd lane of the highway. So you got the 3 lanes of the highway and everybody is in 2 and maybe 3 lanes, right? Everybody's in a minimum of 2 lanes and possibly 3 lanes, right? So everyone needs the investment management. They need the financial planning, and everyone needs it. Even the super wealthy need the financial planning because, like I say, they have a lot of folks on their payroll. Okay. They want to buy that second home in Naples. They want to do all their gifting. So they would need the financial planning, but honestly, just a more advanced version of the financial planning. Okay. Not so much defense, more sort of offense. Okay. But then there's that third lane, which is the family tax planning. And if you don't have a ton of money, then the tax issue might not, resound with you as well. But if you do have a lot of money, or if you do have a large IRA, then you darn well need to be doing this tax planning, which is that third lane. And that's what's so powerful now as far as trying to build out the practice, build the processes, get the software, understand it, figure out how to market around it, how to communicate with clients, and how to deliver the product. So that's sort of that's what we get into. Right. Yep.
I mean, your workshop is the on-ramp, basically an on-ramp at some level for people getting into family tax planning, family tax guidance, whatever words people are using these days. Because, we've seen, especially, we were seeing it before 2017, but, since 2017, this whole tax chaos period, there's so much going on. Now we've got the new Secure Act. There's so many things that there needs to be a lot of planning around. So that's good. And what else can you say about, some of the other, so people are going to get in this final session, people are going to get a healthy dose of you and your take on the available financial planning software tools that you're using, your tech stack.
Yeah. So let me be clear is there are 4 sessions, right? So the first 3 sessions, we're talking about the client experience and marketing and all that other stuff. So for people listening today, I don't want them to think, oh, this is all technology or all planning, right? So this is really the last session that we sort of bring it home, essentially. And also to be clear, it's not just my take, right? Is yes, I do a ton of research and I evaluate a lot of these products because, I know that I'm coming to Horse's Mouth and I know that I'm a trusted source, with Horse's Mouth. But it's also to hear others. So even today on the chat, we only have a few folks right now. We have, commenting, but even on the chat, I have a gentleman saying, hey, what about Right Capital? What about this? What about that? Right? Well, that's what happens in the workshop, right? Is we have anywhere from 30 to 50 people on the workshop. So it's a good sized group because there's enough people on that we're sharing ideas, but not so many people that it's overwhelming or it's chaotic or whatever. And also we have people come off the chat and give comments and ask questions. So it is very much a workshop setting. That's why I call it a workshop and not a seminar, because it's not all driven by me, particularly when we get to the tech area, because I'll say, look, here are the things that I'm using. Yes, I've looked at these other things. Here's why I didn't think they were so great. And then I get challenged in the chat and people will then also come off mute and they'll be like, hey, I am using such and such, and that is working well for me. And I'm like, great, let's hear about that. And so you hear the different use cases and people walk away then, honestly, thinking completely differently about all of this, which is the goal, right? It's not, follow Debbie Taylor necessarily, right? The goal is to think differently, challenge yourself, and grow that practice, grow how you're approaching things.
Right, exactly. I mean, and that's why the workshop continues to, be so well received, and why over the last 5 years, as more and more people have gotten behind what it is you're doing there, because it is. Someone could have come to it 4 years ago. They ought to come to it again because there's going to be new things and new approaches, and the cumulative input of the other people on the call allows for everybody to get schooled up in a way that wasn't on the agenda. It wasn't a bullet point on the marketing materials or anything, but there's some deep and important stuff that's happening there.
Yeah, very much so, Sean. Even to the point where the classroom guide went to the printers and I still went and updated it because all the software came out with these updates over the last month or two, because I guess year end, whatever. Right. And so I ended up updating the electronic classroom guide, literally a month ago. So yes, absolutely. It's very dynamic. Right.
Well, good. So this is just a sort of brief overview. Is what else is there to say about the fourth session? And is there time that you spend where you step back, or you've done the tech stack and financial planning on the 4th day, you also step back and talk to everybody about how to reflect on what's gone on in the previous three sessions, I assume.
Yes, that's a great point. So at the end of every section, throughout the four days, we always have a reflection time where people do come off mute and we share ideas. And then there is time on the last day in particular where we really just debrief as a group that's been together now for these 4 sessions, and people have, a lot of time to share.
Yeah.
And again, I think that's some of the most valuable time.
Right. Good. All right. Well, Doug, we have any other questions from anybody in the audience at this point?
I think just Peter's question there.
Yeah. So Peter, I know you mentioned Right Capital. You see my eyes darting, right? So we got Right Capital, and then a question about FP Alpha. And so it's interesting, Peter, because obviously Right Capital is sort of like nipping at the heels of some of these financial planning programs. We use Income Solver, and we did look at Right Capital. We felt like Right Capital was a little bit simpler. So it's robust when you compare it to some of that core software like Money Guide Pro or eMoney, which don't do any of these things that we want them to do, this sort of extra tax planning work or whatever, distribution analysis. But we felt like Income Solver did go another level deeper that we wanted. And so that's how we ended up with Income Solver. And so what I'd encourage you, Peter, is either look at Income Solver and tell them that Horse's Mouth and Debbie Taylor sent you, because I think there's a potential discount. I'm not sure. But anyway, but also in the workshop, we dig deeply into Income Solver, and then maybe you compare against Right Capital. But we found Income Solver to be a little bit more robust. And for our clients, we thought that was important. FP Alpha. So FP Alpha, again, another software that we looked into it. We've done the trials. I think we actually owned it for like a year. And I like a lot of what they're doing, but it looks to me like Holistiplan is still ahead in the Roth conversion area. Okay. Now I know FP Alpha literally in the last month came out with some new Roth conversion tools. Okay. We can't get our hands on those new Roth conversion tools. And what we have seen so far is Holistiplan is still ahead of the game versus them. And so we go into quite a bit of depth with Holistiplan in the workshop. We do talk about FP Alpha a bit too, because I like some of their other features that they have. But I think the challenge with FP Alpha right now is they're trying to be maybe a few too many things. And I feel like then maybe some of them they're not able to do as well because they're trying to do a number of different things. And it's not to say that they can't get there, but I feel like they're not there yet. So that's my initial response to FP Alpha. But again, I continue to be intrigued. And you can make a use case for FP Alpha in other ways. So if you're not using them for the tax review, but you can use them for some of the planning synopsis that they do, like, oh, you're getting divorced, right? Here's some things to know about getting divorced. They do review insurance policies. So there are some things in FP Alpha that I like, but for the tax analysis, I feel like Holistiplan is still the best from what I have seen. Okay, now all these questions are coming in all of a sudden. Okay.
It's just one question from Nancy Taney, who says, yeah, you mentioned Income Solver with Holistiplan. What about Income Lab?
Yeah.
Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, we looked at Income Lab also. And I hate to say this because you're right, there is a learning curve on Income Solver. Okay, there is a learning curve on Income Solver. But we felt like Income Lab was still a little bit simpler and did not address some of the nuances that Income Solver does. So that's where we end up with Income Solver. I think what you're seeing here, and I see this also in the workshop, right, is some folks, and I get this, right? If you can get from point A to point B in a quicker way, right, why wouldn't you do that, right? Why wouldn't you do that? But if going from point A to point B, you have a road that has some potholes in it and the cops are there ready to pull you over, and maybe you don't really get to point B as well as you want to, then sometimes you need to take that other route. And so I'll see where people are like, oh, what about this software versus that? And a lot of times it's because this software is a little simpler to use. But at the end of the day, we want the best results for these clients. And if it takes a little bit more of that learning curve, then let's push through that. And that's part of the point of the workshop, to be honest, is I get to share with you all this shadow work and all that learning curve. And I get you through it a lot more quickly because I have put in that time and my team has put in that time to start you on second or third base, where I basically started at home plate and it took me a long time to get to first base. And so
Right.
that's sort of my take on this.
Right. All right. We have a question from Alka, and then we're going to wrap it up here. He just asks, do you use Riskalyze? And of course, we know you go over that in the workshop. It's a key part of your practice for sure.
Yeah.
If you want to give 10 seconds on Riskalyze, and then we're going to have to go.
Yeah, love Riskalyze. So that is part of the tech stack. We do talk about that. And Riskalyze is amazing how it has grown from being just like a risk analysis software to all these other features, including client check-ins that we use, when the market's volatile or whatever. So Riskalyze is actually really cool. And yes, we go into that.
All right, good. Okay, everybody. Doug, you want to put the link in the chat one more time for people who can have the last chance for this part of the year for people to get involved in Debbie's workshop. I know we're going to do it again the second half of the year, the Build a Better Business workshop. Click the link, get signed up. You can view the recording from yesterday, and you can be on the next live session next week. Next Tuesday, I guess, right? Is that Tuesday?
Yes. Join us.
Okay. Debbie, thanks so much. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, folks.
Bye.